Yo, 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 what's up, man? It's Antoine Small's Financial Blueprint. We back. We are back. It's been an interesting 3 weeks since my last live, since my last video. And I want to, come back today with a real authentic conversation about overcoming struggles, tough situations, trials and tribulations that come. And I'm going to talk about me, right? We're going to talk about being, fully authentic, have the discussion. Hopefully you guys can take something from it. There will be not be any videos. There will not be any extra stuff. We are just going to talk about the struggle, right? And how we've gotten from, being consistent to not being, to ultimately basically turning it off for a couple of weeks, and how we got back here, right? So as we all know, for the most of y'all know I'm a government employee, civilian and military. And the I'm gonna sit back because we're gonna really talk today. Um, the We know the government shut down, right? And I am not coming from a place that a lot of people come from, meaning my financial situation is a little different, because we have rental property, because I have about five multiple, different streams of income. And I'm not, pressed for bills in a certain way to where it impacts me in a significant way. But the shutdown was tough, right? And we're gonna talk about the shutdown. We're gonna talk about how we got here and ultimately the whole journey, and what I learned from this, right? So if you like the video, if you like the live, man, hit the like button. Remember, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment on how your last month and a half has been throughout this time of this government shutdown, right? So October 1st, we had a government shutdown, right? So October 1st, I got reached out by, the supervisor, and we had to sign furlough notices. Furlough notice is basically the details spelled out of what a furlough is, the process of what you got to go through as a civilian, and ultimately that you are not working throughout this timeline until the government comes back online, as well as not getting paid throughout this timeline, until the government comes back online, right? So you do have some civilian and exempted employees, due to their job, specific functions, to where they have to work. And we just, we know the FAA, we know the TSA workers, we know, that there were a lot of workers that had to go to work but was not getting compensated for their work. So for me, it was furlough, right? Sit on the sidelines until these politicians can figure out their situation and, figure it out. So the first week of October, we got paid on the 7th, I believe it was. And that was only for the last week of September because of the pay period, right? So we got a partial paycheck. Now, because I was already prepared for the shutdown, my bills in the month of October was already, good to go. I was at least 3 weeks ahead, 3 weeks to a month ahead, and I try to stay there when it comes to any bills. I encourage you to get to a place to where you can be ahead at all times, because when things come and finances change, it won't initially impact you in a significantly bad way, right? So first week of October, second week of October, now we in the middle of October, and this was the first paycheck that we did not get, right? Is the first 2 weeks of October, and we get to that third to fourth week of October, and the issues started to happen when we started getting past the second paycheck. Most people live paycheck to paycheck, right? Most Americans, most people in general live paycheck to paycheck. If you miss one paycheck, that hurts, right? When you miss two paychecks, then things start getting a little a little bit different, um because of what the trickle down effects of that is, right? So when we get to the end of October and we not getting paid a second time, now we got to consider the fact that I got multiple mortgages that's due November 1st. So we have little revenue coming in when it comes to government revenue when it comes to my job. So that's one thing. We also have a limited revenue when it coming into the army, because if the government shut down, then that means that the military is functioning, but in a slow way, right? So although Trump was able to get the military paid in the middle of October, there was no guarantee that the military would get paid November 1st. So for me, no paychecks from civilians. The army pay that I was supposed to receive, I didn't get. Got it late, right? So when November 1st came, it was really a red flag. I was good on November mortgages. We took care of that. But the real issue became the third paycheck. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. When I knew I wasn't getting paid the third time, which is the middle of November, oh, it was bad. It's bad then. Because now there is no money for December coming, right? The bills start becoming a problem. So the uncertainty, the stress, the anxiety of when money stops flowing, when you're especially used to that, and when it starts to get to the point where family expenses start getting impacted, the essential things that you do on a day-to-day basis start getting impacted. That's when the problems come. So for me, it wasn't until early November where I was like, okay, this is a problem, right? And again, I pray for everyone that obviously, you don't have multiple streams of income, and this is really where we get to what we need to do moving forward and how we need to move moving forward and adjustments we need to make. This is a learning experience, right? So learn from other people's experience, learn from my experience. Hopefully this can help you in your financial journey moving forward, and ultimately the changes that I will make later when I start talking about those things, right? So we get to the middle of November, we start getting into the middle of November, and we had to get to work. See, the one thing that's not going to happen is we're not going to get to a point where the bills are not getting paid. We're not going to get to the point where the mortgage is not getting paid. We're not going to get to the point where the essential expenses when it comes to our budget is not getting paid. So as a man and as a leader of my household, and as someone that failure is never an option, I had to get to work. So we start flexing, right? We start sparking. We start doing the necessary things that we need to do to make sure the bills is going to get paid. I mean, you out doing, delivering packages, you delivering groceries, you doing whatever you need to do to make sure that you don't have to touch. And this is the real thing, is you don't have to touch your investments, right? I do have a stock market, a stock portfolio, right? I do have real estate. I do have, certain ways of tapping into liquidity. But I try my hardest to not touch those things. Even my 401k and the TSP, and being able to take money out or take loans out, things like that. That's a possibility if emergencies come. But we try to not touch those things because those things are for a long-term asset appreciation, right? So I did not touch my stock market portfolio. I didn't take any money out. Thank God. And I was able to just do extra work to get through the time that we were in. So I put the camera down. I'll be honest with you. Priorities is the priorities, you know what I'm saying? And I put the camera down. I stopped making videos. I stopped being consistent when it comes to my weekly live stock market news live on Fridays, right? Because it became less important about making that more important about making sure that the household is taken care of, right? So we did flex, we did spark, we did the extra work. We obviously get money from our real estate, so that's a blessing. And that timeline really was difficult to get through, right? So, you know, I was at a family function. I was at a Friendsgiving kind of thing this past weekend, and one of my friends came up to me and was like, "Yo, bro, what's up with the YouTube? What's up with the channel? I haven't got no notifications. I haven't got no, no live streams. I haven't got, no videos." And really, to be honest, I was at that point because I was thinking about this over the last couple of weeks. Like, all right, I got to get back on the run with the channel. But I told him, like, honestly, it became less of a priority because the home got to be taken care of at all times, right? And because we have the real estate, because we have the bills, etc., right, the mortgages, you gotta be able to make those payments. And yes, we had 750,000 furloughed employees. I believe that the report was over $1 billion of loans were taken out, as well as a lot of people pushed their mortgages off a month to try to get the government assistance programs that was available for hardships and all of that. And people had to do what they had to do, and that's cool, right? If you had to do that, you had to take out a no interest loan through your bank or through some of the government agency programs, relief programs, all for you. You know what I'm saying? So, but for me, I didn't want to get to that place, right? So I had to get out and do extra work. We had to get out and work more, and that's what we did. And what I really want to say is, like, for my men specifically, like, you can't allow the ship to sink. Like, it's ultimately your responsibility. You can't allow the volcano to erupt to where you can't sustain the life that you ultimately have built. You can't allow that to happen. So if that means you got to get up and get out and do things that you not necessarily want to do, but you can't allow your pride to be so big, so large that you can't deliver some packages to someone's door, or you can't take some groceries to someone's door, or you can't, drive people around with Uber and Lyft. Because I've done it all, right? I know where I come from. I don't come from a lot, but understand the grind is real. And if you need to grind to get to the goals and ultimately the things that you want to reach long term, then you got to make those sacrifices. I remember I was at a lady's door and I was delivering Amazon packages with Flex. And, she's like, "You got a really nice car." She's like, "You doing Flex, you doing Amazon." And I was like, "I'm a government worker right now. I'm not getting no money." She was like, "Yeah, I understand." She was like, "Hopefully that ends soon." Right. But for me, it's like, I mean, I don't really care about what car I drive, even though it's paid off, by the way. That is a flex that I have a paid off vehicle. No debt when it comes to the car. No. But um, you can't put yourself in a position where your pride won't allow you to do what's necessary for your overall success. So that's what I did the whole month of October, the whole month of November. As you know, it's November the 24th, the week of Thanksgiving this week, and we had to get through the difficult times, right? So what did I learn? And this is probably the most important thing about this conversation, is what did I learn from the government shutdown? The first thing is you have to have multiple ways to make money and to sustain your lifestyle, um, and not be fully relying on any one thing, right? The goal in the end is to have you have a tree, you have multiple branches, you ultimately are the tree, and you have branches that help you sustain, right? Roots that are built into the ground. You have a tree, you have branches. How many branches are you able to have? How many streams of income? How many talents? How many gifts? How many skills? How can you grow your tree to be multifaceted when it comes to your life situation? if you are so reliant on one thing, once that one thing gets cut off, it ultimately can crater and turn and tear everything down. Most people only have one or two streams of income. Your W-2, maybe you have multiple W-2s, and maybe you have one or two 1099s and independent contractor work, but ultimately you are fully reliant on one or two things. And when those things stop happening for you, it's bad. It's a bad day. And freedom doesn't come until you can be able to say, I got multiple things I can tap into that can then sustain my lifestyle. And not one thing is not going to hurt me to where it's over with. Right. So the first thing was you got to have multiple streams of income. Number two, you can't have a lot of debt. Debt is so dangerous. And when I mean debt, I mean, like, listen, if you're a homeowner and you have a mortgage, that's one thing. But if you got a car note, if you got loans, like student loan debt, if you have personal loans, right? The worst thing you can have is credit card debt. If you have all of this debt where you owe banks and they don't care, they're going to make, you got to make those payments. That is the first way that you can make sure that if things were to happen in your life in a bad way, that you will be, less impacted, is by having less debt. Right. The fact that I don't have a car note is a blessing, and I paid that thing off in 2 years. Right. I paid off my student loans years ago. Right. When I deployed for the Army, I made sure I paid those student loans off. I don't have any personal loans. And we do have some credit card debt, which again, got to get that out of there. Right. We do have some credit card debt. And of course we have mortgages. So the quicker you can get out of the debt, and then really the significantly bad debt, right? The car notes, the credit cards, the personal loans, the student loans, the more freedom you'll have ultimately in the end. So for me personally, debt has to go. And I'm also including mortgages, right? Because the mortgages are expensive. And although we make money off of rental properties from a cash flow perspective, it's still better to have no more. It's still better to be debt free, right? So number one, multiple streams of income. Number two, little to no debt will always be the best thing for you. So, and then number three, being over leveraged from an investment perspective is no bueno. It's not good, right? And sure, this might be a little bit more advanced conversation, but when we talk about using margins on brokerage accounts, when we talk about possibly being over leveraged when it comes to real estate and bad loans, high interest loans, mortgages, and debt, when it comes to being like maxed out on your credit cards, things like that, that is the worst possible thing that you can be in, right? I had to bring down, we were in margin a little bit when it came to the stock market portfolio. I had to trim that, right? I had to trim some of the fat that we had in the portfolio. And as we know, the stock market did come down 5% this month. So there were some losses there, but we stay long-term invested, right? So being over leveraged is not a good place to be. Yeah. And I mean over leveraged in any area, real estate over leveraged, in the stock market over leveraged, when it comes to your personal debt, when it comes to credit cards, maxed out on credit cards, all of that type of stuff. And then again, high interest loans are just the worst way to be, worst way to go. Right. So multiple streams of income, little to no debt, never be over leveraged. If that's margins, if that's over leveraged in your real estate, over leveraged in your stock market, over leveraged in your personal debt. Right. So how are we moving forward? I'm paying off the debt. Any and all debt that we currently have right now, is going away, and I'm about to create a system to where we can start really significantly paying down these mortgages, right? So the extra work is required for you to do what's necessary for you to be successful. And although I'm not in a bad financial space, you can always be in a better financial space. You can always do more, right? So we're going to continue to do the extra work to make sure that we can position ourselves in a very short period of time to be in a space where if the government were to shut down again, or if, something happens to where we can't then take advantage of, some of the income that we take in, it's not going to significantly affect our household and ultimately our lives the way that this past government shutdown did. And then lastly, let's talk about the mental aspect of things, right? You have to be able to persevere in a way that when stress and anxiety comes, when unknown comes, when some issues start popping up, you should be able to, or you have to be able to still function as a man, right? As a leader. You feel everything. And this is the thing, like, men, we feel it, meaning I feel the impact of it. I still, from an emotional standpoint, have to stay level headed, and I still have to lead my family. In certain ways, my securing them and sheltering them from the stress and the anxiety is me not showing it, right? And then also doing the extra work needed so that they don't feel the impact themselves, right? I don't think my kids even understand what was happening over the last 2 months. I never made them see it, right? My wife, she obviously knows what's going on, but I just get out and get to work. So, when things need to get paid, okay, cool. How much we need to pay? How much that's needed? When is it due by? Okay, cool. We're gonna rock out and make sure that that's getting taken care of. We're gonna plan ahead over the next, 2 weeks to a month to ensure that, whatever that we need to pay gets paid on time. So, I wanted to start back with an authentic conversation based on, my situation, because I know that there are other people that really went through some things over the last 30 or so days as we went through the longest government shutdown in history, right? And we have to, from a military standpoint, we do AARs, after action report, where we take what we did, what was supposed to happen, what actually did happen, and ultimately how we can get better, because we always looking to continue to progress, and ultimately next time we won't be impacted the same way, right? We will be in preparation mode to where we always prepared. And the only way that you can do that is by, one, multiple streams of income, two, little to no debt, right? And then three, if you do have if you have leverage, don't be over leveraged when it comes to anything in your life, anything. So, I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Tap into the channel. We're gonna be back and making the videos, and we're gonna be back on Friday when it comes to the stock market. We did see some drops in the stock market today. The market is going up a little bit right now. We seen Bitcoin take a huge 35% dip off of the recent highs. So we're gonna talk all things stock market on Friday, man. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all this week. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Make sure you say, thankful for your loved ones, thankful for your life. If you got somebody around you that doesn't have family, that lost somebody, that's having a tough time this week, reach out to them. Make sure that they know that you are, around, as well as, possibly give them what they need to feed themselves, and bless them during this Thanksgiving week, man. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all, man. Antoine Smalls, I'm out. Financial Blueprint. Peace.